what is now North America in the USA. The name Brachiosaurus means arm lizard because its front limbs, as you can see, are actually longer than its hind limbs. And thanks to its super long neck, that meant it's able to reach plants off of high branches, unlike other sauropods like Apatosaurus or Diplodocus. The person who named Brachiosaurus, well, Brachiosaurus, is a paleontologist by the name of Elmer Riggs, who found the first fossils of this animal and was the one who measured it by using his own body as a measurement. In fact, the Brachiosaurus's thigh bone would have been as tall as a grown man. Riggs discovered this animal back in 1904. The length of Brachiosaurus would have been between 59 feet to about 78 feet in length. That's about as tall as, and would have been as tall as two giraffes standing on top of one another. Now, a little interesting trivia for you guys. So, do you remember this film? It's a very popular franchise. I just can't remember that film, you know? It's a very popular franchise. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's called Jurassic Park. Anyways, the interesting thing about this is that, for example, the Brachiosaurus from Jurassic Park is actually not based on Brachiosaurus. Shocking, I know. In fact, the Brachiosaurus in Jurassic Park is actually based off of a separate species from Brachiosaurus. It's called Giraffatitan. Now, some of you might be confused and thinking, but why would they make a Brachiosaurus that's not a Brachiosaurus? Well, it's because because at the time of Jurassic Park's release, we had lack of evidence for the fossil, or at least we didn't have a complete skeleton of the animal, meaning we basically use phylogenetic bracketing, which, for those of you that don't know what that is, it basically means that usually to tell what this animal would have looked like if you only have like a few bones, you just basically base the full skeleton on its relatives that are closely related to it. So that way you can get a general idea of what the animal looked like. And that's probably what the makers of Jurassic Park probably did, and why there are so many depictions using the JP Brachiosaurus. Although, now that we've found further fossils, it's now shown that Brachiosaurus would have actually had a more sloping head, like this one. And this would have been more curious, because the thing with sauropods, scientists used to question how did sauropods grew to these massive sizes, and this is a thing we'll get into later. And the types of dinosaurs Brachiosaurus lived with is contentious. We do know that it did live alongside two other sauropods in the region, being that of Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus. I mean Apatosaurus. Why did I get that mixed up? Why am I so dumb? Anyways, for these two animals, they're different in build because Apatosaurus and Diplodocus are Decriosaurians. which are basically these sauropods that have short necks and have these long whip-like tails. And also, so the thing about them is that their front limbs were actually shorter than their hind limbs, which is different from Brachiosaurus. And because of that, that meant they weren't able to get as much plant matter as the Brachiosaurus in the treetops. So instead, they would either A, knock the tree down with their immense weight and size, or B, they would basically eat the plant matter on the ground, basically acting like living lawnmowers. Actually, that would be a cool band name, Dino Lawnmowers. Eating rocks. Now, to those who don't know, well, it's kind of confusing to be at least, but here's to explain. So basically, with they didn't have the strongest jaw muscles, so instead, they would have swallowed rocks called gastroliths in their stomachs. For example, the reason why scientists know this is because of a fossil of a sauropod dinosaur with rocks called gastroliths in its stomach. And the reason sauropods do this is because they can't chew their food. Their jaw muscles don't work like modern day herbivores, like cows or horses. So instead, they would use their jaws to strip plants off of trees branches, and basically strip the leaves off and swallow their food whole instead of actually chewing it. But they would need a way of chewing that food, or at least digesting it, since Jurassic plant matter is pretty tough and very hard to digest. So, the better way to do that is by swallowing stones, so that way the stones in its stomach would crush the plant matter. Although there are some scientists that do suggest this is probably unlikely and that the sauropod may or may not, and that sauropods may have actually just swallowed these stones by accident. But it's more likely they probably did. It's either way. It's just sort of speculation. How did Brachiosaurus grow so big? Well, we know the growth size of Brachiosaurus, and the reason they grew so huge is because of the amount of plant matter they eat. And the reason they grew so big, scientists did have a lot of theories as to how these Brachiosauruses and sauropods in general grew to these titanic proportions. Some scientists used to think that they probably grew because, well, the oxygen back then must have been different than now. Now, some say that it's probably because of their immense size, they probably submerge themselves in water, so that way it creates buoyancy, similar to that of whales. But those theories are now out of date and age like fine milk. So, in recent years, we know that sauropods would have had air sacs and lungs, which would have made the sauropod much lighter. They're similar to that of modern day birds, which would have had hollow bones and air sacs, which would allow them to take off and be much lighter. So even though the Brachiosaurus may look ginormous, it's actually not as heavy as we once thought. For example, if you weighed a chicken that was about the size of a puppy and they're about the same size, the puppy would weigh more because the chicken is technically cheating because it has air sacs in its body. Just some food for thought. Extinction. Well, we know that scientists don't really know exactly how Brachiosaurus went extinct. There was a theory theory that it might have been caused by certain climate change, and it has to do with 3 factors. Number 1 being food. No, not that kind of food. That food. The lack of food in the region may have been a cause for this, since sauropods had to eat kilos and kilos of food every day just to keep going. Another cause of it may have been the apex predators in the region, being that of Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus. And may have been competition with other sauropods in the region. So, unfortunately, the long-necked Brachiosaurus went extinct millions of years ago. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And also, I want to give a big thank you to all of my viewers for being patient and for liking the content I make. It really helps me, and I really appreciate it. So, if you could just share the video with maybe your friends, your family, maybe even your 4-year-old son that likes dinosaurs, that'd be great. I really would appreciate it. Also, sorry if these videos are taking a bit longer to be released. It's because I have to go through some schoolwork I have to finish, but it's all good. Anyways, remember, stay safe out there, be good people, and remember, Jesus loves you very much. See you next time.
Oh my god, you're so tall, you look like a giraffe.
That's why you dead built like a baked bean. A baked bean?